teams in the lobby. We've only got 2 more games left. I cannot believe it, and I want to get on with them as quickly as possible. So let's head to a break. When we come back, we'll be talking about what was the name from the lobby.
Happened, but all I know is in a split second, Scary goes from a 200 HP to 0 HP on his knees, getting knocked down. It was 2 very well-timed overdrive grenades, 2 very well-placed shotgun shots onto Scary, leaving Syaz alone. So a little bit unfortunate there. Got to be a bit aware of the people who are looking for your height. But what I think the good news is they're consistently getting to that height. You know, if they can just keep doing that for the remaining 2 matches, odds are they should be able to close it out in one of them.
And actually, just jumping in quickly here, Mini Miner, it's interesting because when we were looking at the telestration from you guys in the pre-show, you were talking about this high-risk, high-reward playstyle, but we're seeing these guys lurking and going for the W key moments on these other duos, but suddenly they're a sitting duck in the sky, and I think that's something they have to get used to. So I think that's something we're going to see as we go forward in Major number 2. I'm going to clear my throat for a second, though, because, guys, we have to take a look at the players in focus, powered by Milk. So, Mini Miner, who's standing up to you?
Well, let's take a look at these stats right now. Yeah, Teeny with the most amount of eliminations, most amount of damage dealt is something that we spoke about earlier, Takata. This is a player that, you know, he's in a duo where he can be facilitated into getting eliminations, getting damage dealt as well. Both of them. A lot of people would maybe think Shark might be the player that's in those sort of stats, but look at Teeny all the way up there as well.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at the bottom solo point clutch, which is Hari. So about as many points he's been able to clutch as a solo. He's been playing incredibly well. Both him and Cammy have been doing a great job. The issue is not great enough. They're currently in 11th place. Counting the teams that have already qualified, they are in qualifying range, but just outside of that cutoff. So although it's good that the solo clutch points are being picked up, hopefully we see a bit more chemistry and see some, you know, duo points getting picked up moving forwards.
Let's bring up the leaderboard again. Just a reminder, because I made this mistake earlier. If you take a look at the top 3, they've got over 1,000 points. That's because they've got a victory royale. So really, we're looking at 4th and below in terms of consistency points right now. So take a look at Vidil and Ju. They are 10th on the standings board, but really they're 7th in terms of consistency points right now to Carter. And this is a team we're seeing making it to the end games, but just kind of falling at the final hurdle to violence.
Yeah, I mean, like Minnie mentioned earlier, they've stuck together from the recent performances, and you know, I have actually pretty high hopes for this team. Now they're in qualifying range, but they're not comfortably there yet. And as you can see, Vidil was able to clutch out a very significant amount of points in this recent match. So I'm kind of on the edge, to be honest, Minnie, but I definitely think they will qualify. I just want to see them perform at a top level.
Yeah, great to see Vidil actually solo clutching here again as well. If you guys that watched last major, think back all the way to the sort of last chance qualifier in that one. He was solo clutching so much. He was sort of the star of that last chance qualifier and couldn't quite manage to qualify through to the major finals. I think he had 2 second places in that, and that was all because of Vidil and his duo Vampy right there. So it's good to see him back on form.
Yeah, and really good to see him actually resisting the violence and bringing it on himself in those final moments of the game, picking up those all-important elimination points. We are ready for game 4, though, now, so let's head back to Taco and the Jinx. He's called 11-2K.
That is crazy. Or 11, you got to get your get back at some point here today, man. But no, realistically, as we approach games 4 and 5 here, 11, this is sort of the part of the competition where teams that are outside of that consistency metric on the leaderboard, if they're not already gunning for that victory royale, they are most definitely hoping that one of those teams inside the consistency factor actually manages to secure one, because that little bit of an extra push up on the leaderboard could make the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. You're looking for any little advantage you can get at this point. And so here in game number 4, you have to make things happen. Let's see who's ready for the challenge. We've already seen after game 3 that even if your off-spawn situation was looking comfy to start the day, it doesn't mean it will remain that way. And so once more, we will see who has the better drops, who can get the better loot, and who can hit the crucial shots to send your opponents back to the lobby. Ooh, Cammy looking for one out the sky. even without getting that, again, good little damage there. But there are fights breaking out elsewhere. So we'll continue to follow the path of those two. This is the one I was looking forward to. Six and Wers lost the first 2 games of the day. And then they were able to pick up the win here off spawn against Prax and Kuduo in game number 3. Can they do the back-to-back here, Taco, is the question.
Well, if they do manage to back-to-back the off-spawn here, they were able to convert a decent amount of points, but Six and Wers just kind of heading towards the downstairs area of the bus stop, trying to see whether or not Kiduo and Prax are actually going to challenge them anytime soon here. But it's Kiduo coming back in, realizing that there is aggression out of 6, but it's a trade ultimately, and Ware's just not on the better end of things. Still, Kiduo, having been knocked, is going to be a reason to pause here. Prax just not willing to risk it. 6 tried to make his way towards the reboot, but it's a pointless endeavor. Prax will ensure that that is just not going to actually net anything beneficial here. Still, he had to leave Kiduo out in the open, but Wers is just not healthy enough, and that's actually going to be the turnaround for Prax and Kiduo. Ultimately chalk it up to them taking control of the bus stop temporarily.
Hey, look, I think you take that as a win with Wers running off. And so back to the normal balance for these guys. Use game 3 to reset.
It's just, even if you get that off-spawn win, it's still about converting it into a solid enough endgame placement. But when you're sitting at just around those 15 points to start the match off, it's going to take quite a few eliminations. And realistically, you're going to have to go very deep into these end games with the placements to really start to try and build back up. I would think, if anything, either of those teams just sort of trying to bank on the fact of pulling out a victory royale in these last couple of matches here. But Niger is also looking around. Sadia, Dorkos, and Minori, they're the ones potentially being threatened here. They've had Quackaway and Murder's Beach uncon pretty much the entirety of today, but desperate times call for desperate measures, and teams chuck the game plan out the window. They're doing whatever they think might pull out the win.
Darkos and Minori on our screens here. Much to be desired about what it is they've been up to. Feels like we've only ever really seen pieces of it throughout the day. Flashes, moments. And it doesn't look like this one's a good moment for them. Minori left alone now.
That's where Kaijus and Sadia are going to try and pounce. They realize that their patience at least able to net them one piece of the pie here, but they still like the other half to it. Still Teeny and Shark now stuck in a fight against Fadil and Jew, and Shark trying to see if he can turn it around, but overdrive away. That's just going to be his best escape option.
Again, a team that we respect for their fighting prowess.
What goes on with certain freaking team?
Up against two of the
certain team already made it,
better
but
German fighters in this lobby right now.
some
Jew in close quarters combat is always going to be a tough opponent.
today
even if you're as good as Teeny.
not good.
He's feeling the effects of that here. Khan and Reason a bit split right now. Looks like Reason's making his way back in. They obviously know Matisse and Doom are here. It's just about whether or not they can actually get the right lurk onto them.
Sometimes you can't help but wonder if maybe that game 1 opener maybe punched the wind out of their sails for Khan and Reason, because it had just seems so promising. The starting point for today, but sitting at only 6 points in lobby number 4. Khan and Reason are really going to have to dig deep here. If they take this engagement up against the likes of Doom and Matisse, they're going to need to make sure that they can close it out securely. They don't want to run the risk of having another duo intervene, shut down any promising opportunities here. Shark and Teeny from the pan straight into the fire, but Teeny manages to turn it around with an elimination onto Wheat.
Shark and Teeny, again, you can't count these guys out. We saw they were able to recover what was a very messy game in game number 3. Of course, it did fall apart once they got to the end game. Well, it does just beg the question of these guys. There's always going to be a window of opportunity for them to jump through. And here we'll get a replay of just how this fight unfolded between the two. Blink and you'll miss it.
Reason and Khan definitely had some successes here with that one elimination. Pocket here, and it was onto Matisse. Couldn't actually escape from Khan. It's good to see that conversion after how long Khan had invested alongside Reason. So one elimination to get the surge going, but still, what they're really seeking in this lobby more than anything, I'd imagine, is that victory royale. They know that the placement points are going to be very hard to sort of nestle up with the rest of this lobby, but Teeny and Shark just looking so unabashedly aggressive here. Yet again, Shark and Teeny just duo diving straight into the box of everyone that they stumbled across. Yagami this time going to be on the receiving end. That's 4 eliminations already for Shark and Teeny. But you can tell just by the way that they are choosing to key other players in this competition, Levin, that they had zero intentions of sticking around long enough to even see game number 4. They wanted to be out of here after the first, after the second, and still they're left sort of duke things out, but they have done so much damage across these 4 games. Some of these other competitors, they've at least done enough that placement-wise, they'll be safe and sound, but they'd still just want that win.
Yeah, I think ultimately, we've seen this type of thing happen before in heat stages over the years in Fortnite, right? Where you'll have a team that they like probably should have won a game, but then nobody really cares because we get to game 5 and they're like 150 points ahead, right? And like that's the sort of trajectory that these guys look like they're going to be on. Of course, after game 3, it did sort of leave a bit of an opportunity for people to catch up. So their lead right now is only like 40 odd points, but again, if they don't get that win, you'd expect that to sort of increase. And everybody will then forget the 2 games they sort of milked and didn't win. Well, maybe not 2. I'd say one of them was probably a winnable game. The other one was an almost.
Martin Sidox, though, recognizing not really worth sticking around. Materials count a little bit lower than they'd like it to be. Solo sandwiched in between them and another duos. Chris and Peaks are still trying to see if they can give chase here, but a little bit of a standstill from one island to the next.
Yeah, and Chris and Peaks, we've seen these guys in a bunch of these types of fights today, right? And so they're clearly in their element. You've got to say they're familiar with the circumstances they're in, but the fighting will just continue for Shark and Teeny, and some revenge for Shark and Teeny. They find Vidil and Jew again, and they wipe them out of the lobby completely. No chance of a reboot and a rematch. Shark and Teeny will take down the Germans. Let's look at this one again. Shark, what are you feeling like, brother? Okay. Oh, the exit control. And then he steals one away from Teeny. So remember that thing I said earlier in the day about 1v1s and Shark? That's what I meant. And so just keep that in your mind next time around.
Yeah, throw the rest of it out the window. It's moments to be forgotten, because very quickly Shark can remind you just exactly what he is capable of, and that was a great opportunity to sort of highlight it. But Peaks, Chris, now looking to reintroduce themselves to this earlier fight that they had kickstarted up against the likes Polish, but it is still just a little bit tough. No duo escape from these fringes, but Peaks on the receiving end this time, and only 1 versus 1. Chris, fortunately, will be able to pull through on that, but definitely much more haphazard than they'd initially been hoping for.
Yeah, but I think haphazard's been the way to describe their day, right? As far as, again, just taking these scrappy fights in the zone, just trying to go fight to stay in the game. And we go from one fight to another fight. And again, the same old team, Shark and Teeny. So I guess it's fair to say we're at the stage in the day where they've just decided to just W key, right? Like we're there. Can we say we're there? Okay, we're all in agreement.
I think we've been there, to be fair.
Yeah.
Just sometimes it didn't necessarily work out the way they'd intended, but even since the last lobby, it was pretty evident that Shark and Teeny, they don't care who's up next. They're just throwing haymakers, and whoever's unfortunately close enough to get caught in it is just going to be the ones left to deal with it. They will opt to retreat back to a former surge-based setup they had. A lot of leftover goodies, some chug jugs even. And it just gives them a good peripheral of where everybody else in the lobby might be rotating through, cutting off that area. But Swizzy, Pixie, seemingly avoiding their line of sight for the time being. Let's not bad though. Stuck for a moment, but inside of the zone. So not really threatened just yet to have to navigate off of here. Choosing Karmi off in the distance as well. Letches just doing what he can to apply some pressure, try and prevent teams from cutting them off or moving their way.
And we're starting to see the distances are getting tighter. We're getting closer and closer to the end game. So another opportunity here for some of these different teams to try and make their mark here. Again, you want the win. Just being as consistent as you can be will do wonders for you. Big game can push you into them consistency standings. Of course, if you're looking for a big game, it doesn't get bigger than what Shark and Teeny are currently doing. You don't want to run into these guys if you're a bit behind on pace. Ox and Kiro managed to barely escape, I guess you could say. Still more potential victims on the horizon for Shark and Teeny as they set up here. Doom, as soon as Doom looks to rotate out. Oh, is Shark gonna leave? Oh, he's a fortunate man if Shark leaves before he has to rotate.
You would think so, but
It's just he's
how
waiting.
close by Chino and Pablo are. It might not even be Shark's elimination to go for, but Wax and Kiro is definitely an interesting duo to see, sort of circumventing some of that pressure from Shark and Teeny, just because they are right there at the cutoff metric heading into this lobby. They were sitting right around that 16th place on the leaderboard. Obviously, you want to try and overcome that last hurdle, make it directly into that safety net of placements for consistency, qualify for the Major 2 Grand Finals. And so this is the last spot that you want to wind up in. Swizzy now really going to be tested here as a solo, only 120 above. And as the zones continue to draw closer together, congestion starts to build. It's avoided some of it early on, but Not a duo. It's still going to be very difficult to actually overtake some of these other players' positions. And Chino, Pablo taken out before they get a chance to move forward. Swizzy still trying to see if he can get some additional pressure. Realizes that there are players in weak positions. They have been focused, but Swizzy is still a solo. Get a chance to review what Sharkantini had been getting up to, and that's going to be where the shutdown for Chino and Pablo came in. Sharkantini, which shouldn't really come as much of a surprise given how aggressive they have been already, but still, you'll never see Sharkantini complaining about taking out some strong contenders. Cammy and Hari certainly had an interesting day also. Plenty of Surge to work with, but Surge hasn't really been too much of an issue. It's more so the fact that Hari has been left in those solo clutch positions, but he has netted himself, I believe, an impressive 86 points in solo placements throughout these lobbies here today. Ideally, though, want to play through the full endgame with Cammy by his side, but sometimes that's not the way that the cookie crumble. Swizzy, though, still managing to squeeze out every last drop of placement that he can find. Even with his builds running out, he knows all it takes is a well-placed shot, and that could be the difference maker between finding more materials and finding a little bit of extra time to play on that backside of zone 2.
We talked about opportunity hunting and Kiduo and Prax winning their off-spawn battle in this game and looking to make the most out of it. They don't know that they're gonna have a game 5 to play out. And so they just want to get it done and dusted here. In the distance, you see Sires and Scary waiting for these two to make a mistake, and Sires and Scary have both been desperate to try and win a game from height. It hasn't quite worked out for them. Takata said they just have to keep trying, and maybe they'll get it. TV and Shark, though, finally will meet their match. Teeny taken down. Shark will trade. And so that makes it 8 for Shark on the game. They've got a 12 elimination game already. And that's without any more of the fancy stuff happening. We'll see just how crazy things start to pick up and get for these guys.
That's a really rough spot for Prax and Kiduo to be in also, because you have to remember they needed this lobby. They won the off spawn. They wanted to try and see if they can transition it into a victory royale. But now with Shark and Teeny on the high ground, and Shark being successful in finding those eliminations, getting the revive off onto Teeny, but that still means that there's going to be an open avenue for other teams to try and challenge. Shark still left to deal with the full. He's up against another one, but he's pushing the players back. Shark on the high ground yet again. Alongside Teeny, they have managed to still muster up quite a bit of contention here for height.
And they gotta be careful with Axforce in the backside of the zone. You don't know what he's cooking up. Bevy's now towards the front side. You've got to think they'll try and get back together. And now it's gonna be up to anybody else in this lobby to try and do their best to take height off of Shark and Teeny. It's never going to be easy. They've come so close, touching distance now for the two of these guys in the earlier games. And this is so hard. You see the elevation dropping down below. That gives them a bit of room here.
You can tell that there are some players on height. Teeny is going to be the one ultimately trying to turn this one around. He knows that he's got the advantageous spot. Him and Shark have been doing a great job at commandeering from the high ground, but even still, We need to see whether or not Shark is going to be able to actually net something beneficial here. They're trying to build back up to the high ground. Shark knows that they're going to need another refresh, but he's trying to prevent everybody from challenging him on eliminations. And Teeny will manage to get the revive off onto Shark just in the nick of time. And just like that, Teeny, Shark, Carmy, Toos now forced to contend with each other. And Toos doing what he can to see whether or not he can buy his time with the Chug Jugs. He's healing up so efficiently, playing this one out. Teams are forcing each other to sort of clash against the other, but Teeny, even as a solo now, willing to overtake onto the high ground. Without Shark, it doesn't matter. He knows he can still get the job done by his lonesome, just looking down underneath. Teeny still managing to build overhead though. A handful of materials remain, but he's running out quickly on builds. And just like that, Teeny still hoping that the lobby just manages to deal with each other here. But it is a very precarious position to be in. He goes up off the overdrive grenade. Still landing back on height. No one has had a chance yet to truly challenge him. But this is a really tough spot to be. Teeny on a solo height.
And he's done the hard part all throughout this game when needed. But now the toughest challenge comes here for Teeny. But he will rise to that challenge. He gets one and now the 1v2. If he can make this one stick, that would be a way to dispel this second place curse. It won't happen though. A third second place for Shark and Teeny, but it won't matter for Winter. They will take that win. What a win it is for them as well. In a game where they would have certainly needed it, looking at the standings, that's exactly what they were looking for, Taco.
No, you couldn't have asked for it to come at a better time. I mean, you are really cutting it close down to the wire here, but for Winter and Johnny Muka, they are looking good to go. So, Desk, what do you guys got for us?
I feel like it's inevitable now, Shark and Teeny not qualifying for the finals via a victory royale, but qualifying through sheer tenacity. More of that after the break. But right now, a huge congratulations to Winter and Joni. Interesting to see some of these lesser known names, Mini Minor, stepping up to the plate and getting those all-important victory royales.
Yeah, first major finals for these guys as well. So it seems like we've got a couple of teams now making their first appearance in the major grand finals. And again, it's always exciting to see these sort of names coming on through, seeing what they can actually end up performing like in these actual big events, because these are the sort of lobbies that you tend to see them in. But now the lights are going to be even brighter for them. How are they going to prepare? How are they going to approach that major final? We have to wait and see, but big props to them.
Yeah, I mean, they were 20th place going into this match, so it wasn't the complete bottom of the leaderboard, but they were not in qualifying range. So that's the exact position where you want to win a match in. So congrats to them.
Yeah, congratulations to these guys. And for Shark and Teeny, I just want to talk about them briefly because our eyes were on them in the end game. Our eyes specifically was on Teeny crazily clutching that confidence was next level. And I mean, let's take a look though back at Winter there and Joni. Now we've got these highlights out here, and Takata, I mean, this is going to give them so much confidence going into the grand finals, but it's going to be very different when we've got a grand finals lobby.
Yeah, I mean, look at the amount of eliminations they have. They have 6. That's double the eliminations they had throughout the whole tournament leading into this match in this one game that they played. And not only that, securing the VR. So love to see those pop-off matches come through. That's kind of the fun of heats, right? You never really know what's going to happen. And now with 4 matches down and only 1 left to go, means the pressure is that much heavier for all the players who are outside of that consistency qualifying range.
Yeah, and it's not easy to play those mid to low ground layers. You know, you can talk about a team that maybe takes height, gets lucky with an overdrive grenade, and then they win the game, particularly for a lesser experienced team. But props to them for playing that way, the way that they did, getting all those eliminations. It's not easy to do that whatsoever, so very well deserved.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for your insights. And we're going to have even more when we come back, getting ready for Game 5 after the break.